kind of going back to like developing our sense of self and knowing what we think, feel, want, and need, is also creating our own identity and not inheriting the identities that the church gives us, right? And it can include, like, for example, in the Mormon faith, like the main inherited identity for women is mother, which is great. That's a huge part, but that's one slice of the pie for me.
Right.
And so really being able to identify what identities are important to you, and not everyone becomes a mother. Not everyone wants to become a mother. So what are your identities and how do you self-define that? So you're not defined by external sources.
Oh, I love that. Yes. And some women can't become mothers. And, you know, and that's heartbreaking when there's so much value and weight put on those roles. We've talked about this before on our podcast, but.
Welcome back to That's Church. This is Emily Call here with my sister, Ashley Sanders. Today, we are honored to sit with the Dr. Julie Hanks, a licensed clinical social worker, psychotherapist, relationship expert, performing songwriter, and owner of Wasatch Family Therapy. Dr. Hanks has devoted her career to helping individuals and couples navigate faith transitions, strengthen family connections, and find their voices with structures that may feel confining. Her expertise in mixed faith marriages, women's emotional health, and spiritual identity shifts offers a compassionate and empowering perspective. In this episode, we explore how differing beliefs within a marriage can become an avenue for growth rather than disconnection, what it means to separate personal values from religious practices, and how to navigate patriarchal cultures while still honoring one's authentic self. We also discuss the importance of setting boundaries and embracing personal spirituality in a world that often conflates faith with behavior. Plus, Dr. Hanks will share details about her upcoming January Mixed Faith Couples Group, a supportive space designed to help partners communicate, honor differences, and move forward with understanding and love. You can find more information on that at drjuliehanks.com, and I noticed today there is a quick link in her bio on Instagram at Dr. Julie Hanks. Let's dive into this epic, thought-provoking conversation with Dr. Julie Hanks. Dr. Julie Hanks, we are so honored to have you on our podcast. Thank you so much for being here. And we're so grateful that you came to our That's Church experience this last weekend. It was so fun to see you there, and we were so grateful that you posted about it for your followers as well. And I know we had quite a few of them attend. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. It was a wonderful event. So congratulations, both of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was so fun and such a beautiful experience for us. And our presenters were just absolutely insanely amazing. And it turned out really, really well. So thank you for being there and supporting us. You are doing such amazing work and such important work. In a space where there can be a lot of pain, you are providing support through faith transitions and faith struggles and deconstruction, something that is so needed right now. And you're an expert in it. So it is such a valuable thing that you're doing. And we were so excited to see that you recently started a new program for mixed faith couples. This is so exciting for us, especially in the space that we are in. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what inspired it?
Yeah, I've worked with couples, for decades who are in mixed faith marriages, and it creates so much pain and conflict, but in my mind, it doesn't have to. And so I love helping couples see that one leaving the faith is actually an opportunity to grow as a couple, and that it doesn't have to doom your relationship. It doesn't have to be the source of so much pain and conflict. While there is grief and sadness around it, it's really an opportunity as I see it. And so that's why I'm doing this group in January for mixed faith couples.
So awesome. I love it. I think in our culture, it's very common for couples to be the mixed faith to definitely be somebody that has left their religion and is really struggling in that in leaving, and then also the other couple is struggling in their leaving,
Right.
and grappling with, okay, what do I do with this?
Right.
We also, during our That's Church experience, we had a couple present that was an interfaith mixed couple, before they even got married. One was Hindu and one was LDS, which is very unique, I think, in our culture
Mm-hmm.
here in Utah. But it was a beautiful thing to see that it really can be a beautiful relationship,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to be a source of contention. But
Yeah.
there's still pain in it for sure, especially when it's something that you have really identified yourself with, I think,
Mm-hmm.
growing up, especially if you grew up in the church or in your faith system, it can be super painful. So I think
Yeah.
this is going to be an incredible program, and
Yeah.
I'm really
Thank you.
excited to see it
Thank you.
unfold. Yeah.
Yeah. When couples come together with a shared religious background, and that's the agreement,
Mm,
and then one of them kind of breaks the agreement by leaving, there's a real sense of betrayal that I think it doesn't happen if you know what you're getting into initially. Like, okay, we are on different pages, and we can overcome that. But I think the sense of betrayal is unique to people who have a shared faith, and then one of them changes their mind or has a faith transition or deconstruction.
Right. Oh, that's such a I've never thought of it that way, like the, agreement, because it kind of is like an
Yeah.
unspoken agreement. Like this is how we're gonna raise our family and what we're gonna do. And I love so much that Brandon Onkar, the couple Emmy's referring to, they always go back to values and
Yeah.
love and respect. And I
Yeah.
think that I'm sure you see this in your work, Julie, that like you can start to see people break those walls down and see each other and see their values instead of these pretend fronts that we put up as
Yeah.
humans. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I do a lot of values work with couples that I work with who are where one's going through a faith transition. And what is so comforting is values often stay the same. And in many organized religions, we collapse values with behaviors. Right. So in the LDS faith, we might think generosity equals tithing. Well, tithing and generosity are different. Like tithing can be a way to express a value of generosity, but it's not the only way. And so when the person who stays in the faith recognizes, oh, my partner still has that same value of generosity, they just want to direct that in through a different behavior, but the value's the same. There's a sense of comfort that kind of can make it a little bit easier to have that difference.
I think too, structure feels so safe. This is our value, which equals tithing,
Right.
or this is how we are generous, tithing. But when you kind of reach beyond that, you have to figure things out for yourself, and that's so much scarier. And I think that it's important work that you're doing in that. It's helpful for people to realize that this isn't something that people are choosing. This
Right.
is something that is really difficult, and it would be so much easier to stay in that space that they have been taught, that gives an outline of, this is the checklist, this, and then you're good, and then you have values, and then you're valid.
Yeah.
But when you reach outside of that, you have to find new identity, and that is a really tricky space that is so difficult to navigate.
Yeah. Agreed.
So there are people that are in, I mean, obviously we have different types of family structures and relationships. So, and it's not all within couples or marriages. And there are people that are experiencing faith struggles or faith transitions. How do you help people to navigate those transitions or those struggles and those situations, and still maintain strong and healthy relationships with whoever it is, friends, family?
Yeah, so I help frame the experience as growth and as positive, because it feels so terrifying and so scary to the person who's experiencing the faith transition and to their loved ones, right? So to frame it for the individual, like, this is actually growth and it's good, even though it's painful, right? And then really cultivating empathy for for loved ones. Like, this is painful for you, but it's also painful for loved ones. It's scary. There's grief involved. And so developing that empathy. It's interesting. I'm actually speaking this weekend to a post-Mormon large group about maintaining relationships with believing loved ones. So this question has been on my mind, like, what can people who've left specifically the LDS faith do to maintain those relationships? So this is really fresh on my mind.
Cool. Yeah. That's
so
amazing.
helpful. It's so needed too in this state that we live in. It's a tricky one for sure. And I think you nailed it when you said I think sometimes we can forget that we're not the only ones experiencing it. Like you said, it's difficult for everyone involved, but we also have to always be authentic to ourselves.
Right.
Definitely. We don't want to abandon ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that often when people leave a religion, they don't necessarily let go of some of the unhealthy patterns that negatively impact relationships. And people who leave often can see that clearly in their believing loved ones, but less so in themselves. And so that's actually what I'm going to be talking about, or like, what have you carried with you that's actually unhealthy from your religion, and that is impacting your relationships negatively. And one of those is hierarchy in relationships, right? Like, in a lot of high demand religions, there's a hierarchical structure in families, in the faith structure. And so people who leave actually carry that with them often. And then it's like, who's better than, now I have the truth, or I'm more enlightened, or I'm better than, right? And it's still this hierarchical instead of an egalitarian, equal partnership of like, we're different, we're equally valid and valuable, and we both deserve respect. And anyway, so I'm really excited, obviously, about sharing some of my thoughts.
Oh, I'm excited for you and for that crowd. That's going to be fascinating. I could totally see that. People carrying those negativities with them.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to unravel and unlearn some of these things that these, toxic ideologies that not everybody carries. I know people in the church that are completely happy, that have never carried any of these negative things, but that's not everyone's experience. And I think it does take time to unlearn and sort of shed all of those ideals that we might not agree with anymore.
Right.
I think it's also been interesting for us in what we're kind of delving into in our space, to find that it's not just us, it's not just LDS people. Like you mentioned, high demand religions. And so it kind of makes me feel not as alone and not as like weird, maybe. That there are other, as we've kind of learned more about other Christian denominations and other religions just in general, people are really deconstructing right now with kind of this information age and really realizing that we can make our own decisions. And I think part of that comes with age as well, but also this time of life and the world that we live in at this moment. It's happening all over the world. So we're not alone. It's not just us.
Yeah.
And I think that helps to realize that we can connect with everyone. We can connect with anyone that we choose to connect with, and we can connect through struggles as well. So I think opportunities like going to events that you're speaking at and things like that, those are opportunities to connect with other people. That is so important. We live in kind of a patriarchal world. I think we've come from a patriarchal world throughout history, but specifically, what are some ways that women can find their voice and empowerment within religious patriarchal cultures?
Which, that's like the $1 million question that I'm always trying to parse out, right? So I think the first step is really developing ourselves, so we know what we need to say and how we feel. So what we think, feel, want, and need. And until we identify those 4 things, we don't even know what needs to be said or what needs to change. And so doing the self work is one piece, but also really doing whatever we can structurally to call attention to or to highlight the inequalities, unfairness, and those kind of things. And it's really hard when you are a woman in a patriarchal structure, because by definition, you are not the person in power. And so I think there's a tendency for women to kind of want to overcorrect sometimes and just be like, screw that. You know what I mean? And I think really the solution is men and women working together to change the structure, right? Like, we need men, because men are the ones who have the power to make changes that women don't in a patriarchal structure, right? And for some people, they need to leave. In terms of a patriarchal religion, it's best for them to leave it, which is totally valid and right. But you can never get away from patriarchal organizations, because our current world is based primarily in a patriarchal structure. One thing that's really helped me is to study other cultures that are not patriarchal, and what do they look like, and what characteristics do they have, and how can we incorporate more of those. So one of the characteristics that we talked about earlier is hierarchy and ranking. People rank, like, where are you on the ladder of importance or power or influence? And in societies that are not hierarchical, they're structured entirely differently by connecting and linking of people. And so it's not a hierarchical structure. And so it's helped me to think, okay, how am I recreating hierarchies in my life, and how can I focus more on relationships and on connecting and on linking and on caring for other human beings, because that is the other end of the continuum of ranking, is connection.
Wow. I love that. I especially love that you said to study other cultures. I mean, that's such a no-brainer, but I think that's something that we might forget about. It kind of, I think sometimes when something bothers us, we just want to focus on the negative side of it and just pick that apart instead of trying to come up with like a positive solution. I also wanted to say, it reminded me when you were talking about men supporting women, especially within high demand religions and patriarchal religions. It reminded me of Emily's husband, Todd, my brother-in-law. He gave a talk, and I don't remember why he had to travel around to other states to give it. Emmy, I don't know why, but I just was so proud of him, and the talk was amazing, and it was so inclusive, and it was so open-minded. And I just remember thinking, like, he's the one who needs to do that, because to a lot of people, and this is very unfortunate, but to a lot of people, it's more impactful coming from him, from a man up there in a suit and a tie, rather than me in my tank top dress with my tattoos showing. And again, like, that's a generalization. I know not everyone feels that way, but it's unfortunate that oftentimes within patriarchal societies, men are more respected, and what they say holds more value and more weight. So
Yeah.
I just think the more men that are willing to talk about these topics, and, Patrick Mason, who's aligned with the, oh my gosh, what is the organization, Emmy? Mormon women
for ethical government.
Yes, Mormon women for ethical government. And I love so much that he supports that, because his supporting that will hold a lot of weight to more people, maybe. And that's, again, it's unfortunate, and it's not the case with everyone, but it is, like, men's support for women is huge.
Yeah. And kind of going back to, like, developing our sense of self and knowing what we think, feel, want, and need, is also creating our own identity and not inheriting the identities that the church gives us, right? And it can include, like, for example, in the Mormon faith, like, the main inherited identity for women is mother, right? Which is great. Like, that's a huge part, but, like, that's one slice of the pie for me.
Right.
And
yes.
so really being able to like, identify what identities are important to you, and not everyone becomes a mother. Not everyone wants to become a mother. So what are your identities, and how do you self-define that so you're not defined by external sources?
Oh, I love that. Yes. And some women can't become mothers. And,
Right.
and that's heartbreaking
Yep.
when there's so much weight put on those roles. We've talked about this before on our podcast, but our mother was feminist without realizing that she was. And it's because she held herself with so much worth, so much respect, that when she would talk to our bishop, I knew they were equal because of the way she talked to him.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, I'm so grateful for her example, because it's sad to say, but I was in my late 20s when I realized that we did have more of a patriarchal society, because I didn't see it that way, because I had that strong female role model. So I think what you're saying is huge. Like the impact we have as individuals to hold ourselves with a higher worth, to hold ourselves in our authentic spiritual statuses, like to make sure that people know that we're worthy, and we're just as worthy as anyone else within this religion. So yeah, that's huge. I'm so glad you brought that up.
And I think that's one piece, and the other piece is working to change the structure, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like to give more feedback, to say, this is a problem. One of the things I'm passionate about is telling people, like, you don't have to agree with everything. You can say, oh, yeah, that was taught, but that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
mm-hmm.
You don't have to just take everything as like, oh, it's everything that's ever said over the pulpit is true. You can go, yeah, I disagree with that. That's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Like, question things and try to highlight things that are unequal and request change.
I love that. Amen. Mic drop.
I think I think growing up I saw women that were that way, that kind of spoke out. And I remember people being like, oh my gosh, she's so annoying. Now I think we'd call her Karen, maybe, or something
or
like
assertive.
She's whiny, or she's so assertive, like in a really negative tone. And so that kind of stuck with me. And it's hard to dispel that from our minds, And now I think I text my bishop all the time. Like, I'm like, hey, by the way, I'll tell him too, hey, I noticed that Aubrey would be really good in Relief Society. And right now she's in primary and she is really struggling because she has little kids. And I think she'd do really well in Relief Society, and she has a lot to say.
Yeah.
And she was called to Relief Society. And at first, when I started doing that, I felt really heard. And then over time, I'm like, oh, I am being that naggy Nelly, and I'm getting annoying, but that's okay. I think those thoughts that I was taught as a kid or growing up, like, come back, and I'm like, oh, I'm probably so annoying. But you know what? Like, he is the leader. And if people are like women that really know what's going on and feel people and know what's happening in this world that he's leading, are not asserting themselves, then it's just not going to be done, and there are things that he ignores that I say, and there are things that he listens to. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that he'll listen to me, or whoever it is in power, or just in the situation that I want to change. I'm grateful they'll listen to me. And I'm going to keep doing it, even if I'm not listened to.
Yes.
And the problem is that it's a man who always gets to decide whether or not to listen to you. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm. That was my thought too. It's like, when we step back and look at it, it's like, oh, there's just, and I can get a little spicy on this topic, but I just think there's no other place in my life that I would need to explain to my little girls that, hey, you can't be a manager if you work at Costco. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, there's no other place in their life where I would say, like, well, you can't be a principal. Sorry, you're a girl. Like, no, all of these places are equal. And so it can get frustrating.
Becoming that way. Yeah.
And it's right. It's still, not fully, but But it is hard in these conversations to think the space where they should feel the most safe and valued.
Yeah.
They don't always. And so it's just important to empower each other.
It's the last place where girls are told they can't do things because they're girls. I have 2 sons, 2 daughters, and my girls aren't having it. They're like, yeah,
I'm sorry.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
don't tell me that. Don't tell me I can't.
That's awesome.
Right.
And it's hard for, like, sometimes I question, like, I wouldn't go to send my kids to a school where women were not able to be the principals. I wouldn't shop at a store where it's like, we don't hire women. And so there's a lot of tension, like trying to wrestle with that. Like, okay, this is reality right now, but like, it's not necessarily good. And what do you do with that?
Yes.
It's hard.
And I think this is it. Coming and talking about it, sharing it, letting people know that, oh, maybe I'm not the only one that feels that way. You talk about your children, and it's such a tender spot in my heart too. It's so interesting. My husband, he has a harder time going to church right now than I do. And that is his reason. He said, it's really hard for me to think of my little girls not having this, like being on the same playing ground. And he's like, I'm sad that I didn't think of it with me. Yeah. And I said, well, I think because maybe I am a little like my mom, and I mean, I'm an adult. I speak my mind. I can do these things. But when you think of your children, especially my children are younger, and I think, how will they take this into their lives? Like, will our examples as parents be enough for them? Because we just never know. And each personality, each child is so different. And so it is. I know it's something that a lot of people are grappling with. And yeah, I just think the more we talk about it, the more, I mean, I'm so honest with my kids, and they're young,
Yeah.
But I am so honest with them, and I ask them questions all the time. Like, do you think there's a heavenly mother? And they'll answer. Like, we just have real conversations. And so I don't know. I think that's probably where we start, but I'm with you that there needs to probably be more done,
Because I think women are leaving organized religions, young. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so something has to change. I mean, not just in the Latter-day Saint faith, but like, people are leaving organized religion, and women are leaving at higher rates than they ever have before.
Crazy.
It makes sense, though. It does.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we are super hyper vigilant with it, because we want our girls to not have to question whether or not I can speak out and be assertive, And my daughter wanted to come to this event that we did this weekend. And at first I was like, yeah, that'd be so fun. And then I thought, well, it might not be super classy to have a 12-year-old girl there. And we're not going to have kids. Like, it's mostly going to be adults, and it's a gallery, And then I was like, no, if she wants to come, I want her to see that we are in a space of leadership, and people are listening to us, and we're women, And she was so strong at that event. Like, she stood there and greeted people. And at one point there were a group of men. I just thought this was the coolest thing. There were a group of men talking, and one of the men, they were all friends. And one of the men said, hey, here's my realtor card. And he passed out all of his cards. And she stepped into this group of men, of like 5 or 6 men, and said, I have a card too, and gave them all of our That's Church business cards. Passed them out. Cute. And they thought she was hilarious. But I was like, dang, girl, like,
I think she greeted me. Yes. She was adorable.
She's awesome. I know. I'm like, I've always said she's going to be a strong woman because she's kind of naughty growing up. And I was like, yes, I am not going to stifle that fire,
Yeah.
But I think that's really important for us to be cognizant of our girls, and really that we are telling them, not just by example, but that we are like setting them aside and being like, you can be whatever you want to be. You can be president of the United States. You can, and you can be annoying to the men in your life as well. If they are in leadership, you can be the one to be like, no, this needs to change. And hopefully it will over time. Hopefully we will be the ones in leadership, and it won't be the men that we're having to go to. to be assertive too, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
It's the goal.
That's the goal. That is the goal. And hopefully we can, yeah, men can stop seeing, well, men and women, because I do think that women can do this too, but yeah, stop seeing those assertiveness, as you mentioned. It's not annoying. It's just being assertive. And for some reason with men, it's seen as being assertive. And with women, it's seen as being annoying. And it's just not fair. But yeah, these are things that I think are changing slowly, but we need to ramp it up even more. For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so every relationship is a relationship, even a religious relationship. So, what is your perspective on the importance of setting boundaries in both religious and family relationships and dynamics?
It's crucial in healthy relationships. I wrote a book called The Assertiveness Guide for Women.
Oh yeah, I love
Love
it.
it. I love
Yes.
this.
That's
So
our
I
word
love
for the
this.
day.
I love this
This is it.
question. It in order to have healthy relationships, you have to have boundaries. And boundaries are just what's okay and what's not okay for me. It's not about trying to change someone else or control someone else. It's just like what I will do and what I won't do, and what I'll allow and what I won't allow. And so it's just part of being human, right? Is to go, no, you overstepped, and here's my boundary. Or no, I'm not going to accept that calling. Or here's how I want to be treated. And boundaries aren't just what we don't want, it's also what we asking for what we want. Right? I would like to be treated this way.
Oh, I like that so much. And I think it's okay to not feel bad. I mean, it's not just okay. It's important to not feel bad about it. To state our truth and state what needs to happen and what the boundary is and what's not okay, what is okay, and be okay with that, and stand our ground and feel confident in it.
Right.
Somebody asked me to prepare dinner for somebody, and that's my worst nightmare. I'm just not good at food. I'm not a great cook. I don't like it. I don't want to. And also it was like the day before our event, I was like, no, I just can't do this right now. And I forgot about it. I forgot about the text. So someone else texted me. So I'm like, oh gosh, they're really needing this. But I just said, no, I don't like doing food. I'd love to help in other ways in the future, but right now I'm super busy. And that was it. That was all. I may go back and soften it a little bit because it was so chaotic at that moment. I just had to be very frank. But that's okay. And I don't feel bad about it,
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just moving forward. And that's what I said. And I say what I said and I mean it. What's the Horton Hears the Who?
Yeah.
I say what I said and I
mean, yeah.
I mean, I
like
say
that.
what I said and I mean what I said. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I remember what you're talking about.
Right? That just came to my mind, but it'd be cool if I knew it.
I also want to bring up, it's really important to set boundaries, even if you do feel guilt, because setting boundaries without guilt is a skill that is developed over time. And so
that's huge.
Setting just because you feel guilt, you should doesn't mean you shouldn't set the boundary, right? You should still set the boundary and then process the guilt after and kind of, okay, where's this coming from? And where's the source of this? Oh, the source is I've been taught that I should always say yes when the church asks me to do something, or, and process the guilt, but still set the boundary.
Oh, I love that.
I'm so happy you said that.
Yes, same, because I think that we're taught to just service is such a huge thing within our culture. And I do, when you were talking about food, Emmy, it's so interesting because that's always the sign up that goes around the classroom, like sign up for meals. And that's not my strong suit either, but I'd love to be like, I can, come and visit, or maybe I can take you somewhere to get food, or, so there's just so many different ways to serve, but also, the boundary, the guilt. I am definitely the type of person that sets the boundary. And then I'm like, oh, but it's so-and-so, I have to do it. And I need to break it this once.
Yeah.
And it is I think it's probably taken me 3 years to really be able to set boundaries. And that's kind of embarrassing to admit, but It's true, because I'm like natural people pleaser.
Yeah.
So it is, I think you nailed it when you say like it needs to be practiced.
And I think sometimes it'll feel more uncomfortable than other times too. And you might practice it and then be like, "Oh, I'm getting good at this." And then other times it's more uncomfortable. That's okay. I usually will just send pizza. Like I'll be like, "Oh, I'll send pizza." And
That's a good one.
but this time I just didn't want to. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
You just
it's
know. Yeah.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's not a boundary you have set for everything across the board all the time. This time, I just didn't want to. And I just didn't have the mental space for it, even just to order a pizza. I just didn't. So I didn't. And it's
And
okay.
it's
You don't
okay.
have to explain
And
it
someone
either.
else probably
You
filled
can
in.
just say no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you can just say no too with no explanation. That's
Yeah.
hard for me. That is so much easier said than done for me, but it gets better. It gets easier with practice.
For sure. Okay, so we strongly believe in therapy. We're all about it. I think it's so great and it's good. I think therapy is important in any situation. My mom always said growing up, and I think this was maybe even while we were young and it was maybe a little bit taboo, but she always said that everyone should have therapy. Like
Yeah.
whatever your situation is, just to receive support in any capacity. We have a fast paced world and it's needed. We need support. And part of our lives is spiritual. So how can mental health professionals play a meaningful role in supporting individuals in their spiritual journey?
Yeah. I think any good therapist will meet the client where they are. Some people aren't spiritual, and so spirituality won't be a part of the therapy. If you are spiritual, then the therapist will help you with whatever you bring into the session, right?
Mm-hmm.
A therapist should never put their spiritual beliefs on you or encourage you in a certain direction based on their own beliefs. That would be unethical therapy. And so good skilled therapists will work with all parts of you, and spirituality is a large part of a lot of people's lives. Also, I think it's important to differentiate religiosity and spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
Those can overlap, but they can be totally different. I've worked with very spiritual people who are not religious, and I've worked with religious people who aren't spiritual. It's more of a like duty. I
Mm-hmm.
do this, and they don't necessarily have a connection with something bigger than themselves other than the actual organization of the church. And so those aren't,
Interesting.
they can be this overlapping, but they're not the same. And so I think skilled mental health professionals will support individuals in cultivating their own beliefs, not the therapist's beliefs.
Wow. And that's such a good reminder for people to look out for
Yeah.
that I think people might not realize, because that is, I mean, that happens. We've seen it with some high profile cases in Utah. Not
Yeah.
good ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not good
Definitely.
ones. So
Definitely.
it is, you just never know what you're going to get. That's such a great reminder and so
Yeah.
fascinating
If
to, yeah.
if the therapist is mixing their beliefs, run.
Don't
And
walk, run.
some parents don't like that because like if you take your teen in or for therapy, or it's like a lot of parents want a therapist who will preach what the parents believes to the client, to the teen, and that's not good therapy. The good therapy will be helping the teen develop their own beliefs. What is the meaning of life to you? What, do you have a connection with deity? What is that like? Right? Like, and so it's hard for parents sometimes because parents want therapists to be bishops and preach to their kids so their kid will stay on the right path,
it's
or
so fascinating. Just let them learn that at church. Like let those be separate. But I love what you're saying too, that it can't be forced. That seems like a no-brainer. And it reminds me, someone in my life, I can't remember who said this a few years ago, but they said to pick a good news station, pick one that doesn't tell you what you believe, but gives you the information and lets you decide what you believe.
Exactly.
And I think that's exactly what you're saying with therapy too, that it seems like the no-brainer, but I bet there are parents that that try to sneak that in. Oh, that's so unfortunate.
I think parents also assume that the bishop can be a therapist, and the bishop is not a professional mental health, therapist.
Right.
That is really dangerous also.
Right.
And I think we're getting away from that, but it's still there for sure.
Yeah. Everybody should stay in their lane. Right.
Yes. Love that. Yes.
For sure.
Everyone in their lane.
Yeah. Okay. We have 2 questions left for you. I do want to slip this one in quickly. So our podcast is called That's Church. And the reason we named it that is because church can be wherever you want it to be, wherever it is for you. It can be outside of the walls of your church. So Dr. Julie Hanks, what is your church outside of the walls of your church building?
The beach.
Yes.
There's something about sand and the waves and sunshine. And I grew up in Southern California. And so I grew up going to the beach, and there's just something that's very spiritual about the ocean and the beach. It's just beautiful.
Why do we live in Utah?
I know. Every day I ask myself that.
Yes.
I know. Anytime I'm at the beach, I question, why do I live in Utah?
Yeah.
Because it's cheaper maybe, and mountains are beautiful.
I was going to say, if we didn't have the mountains, I always said I would need the ocean because it's the same kind of feeling, very sacred. And I love that. Now I need to go to the beach.
For sure.
Okay. And then our last question, this is just one that we ask to sort of like end on a fun high note, but we would love it if you are open to sharing an embarrassing moment with us or, so you could do both of these. We have this question. What would you change in the world if you could change one thing without any question or obstacle in front of you?
Okay. Embarrassing moment. This is more like an awkward moment. Will that count?
Yeah. That's great.
Okay. So I'm also a performing songwriter, and I don't do a lot of performing these days, but for about 30 years I was doing therapy and also doing songwriting and stuff.
No way. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so early on, I was doing I think it was in Mesa, Arizona, doing a concert. And I was going to stay with someone who I didn't know, but it was set up by the person who set up the concert. Like, oh, you're going to stay with my friends and, blah, blah, blah. And so I rode after with this family, and they're like, oh, we're so excited to have you and blah, blah, blah. And they had 2 twin girls. And we get there to their house, and they're like, here's your bedroom. I'm like, great. And so they're like, okay, girls, you're going to have to sleep on the top. Julie gets the bottom. And I was like, wait, they're sleeping in the room with me? I'm sleeping in the room with the twin girls?
Oh my gosh, no way.
And I was like, I don't know what to do because I'm stranded here, right? Like,
yeah.
And so I slept in a room like with the two twin little girls on the top bunk, and it was like creaking whenever they moved. And I was just like,
like
I'm a grown adult. And, and they were so sweet and so generous. But I was just like,
there's something about kicking a twin out of their bed too that would make me just feel bad.
I was like, you got a couch? I'm okay with couches. But anyway, so I, as an adult, slept in a bunk bed with twin girls bed, and
amazing.
They were so sweet and had like their stuffed animals all lined up for me, and anyway, but I was just dying.
So cute.
It's like, this is not what I imagined when they're like, we have an extra bed. I thought bedroom.
You're like, bedroom.
You're like, oh, really? Bed.
It's like a slumber party. You're like, let's have a pillow fight.
I know. I was like, anyway, and I didn't.
That's so funny.
I didn't bring pajamas, and so I had to wear clothes to bed because I was like, I'm not going to just be in my underwear with these.
You thought you'd be in your own space.
That's the worst too.
Anyway,
it's so uncomfortable.
So it's just an awkward moment. So that's that.
Oh my gosh,
that's so funny.
If I could change one thing in the world, oh gosh, there's so many, but I think partnership between men and women. I think that would solve all of the other problems. I think if men and women were working together at every level of government, religion, families, communities, church, that that we would have a lot more compassion, caring, less violence, less need. And so, yeah, that's what I would do.
I
Love
love
it.
that. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here
Oh,
and just
my
sharing a part
pleasure.
of yourself with us. This has been so fun
Mhm.
and so insightful. I feel like I've learned so much.
Can you share with our listeners how to find you and
Yeah,
anything you have coming up that they can participate in? Yeah, just
yeah,
share.
yeah. So, drjuliehanks.com is my website. My therapy website is Wasatch Family Therapy, and we work with people all throughout Utah, and then also virtually in California, Colorado, Montana, Idaho, I think Arizona.
Wow.
Yeah, so we work with people. We work a lot with faith transitions. We work with kids on up to adults, and then on social media at Dr. Julie Hanks is my handle on all social media.
I
Yes,
just started listening to your podcast too, and it is so good.
thank you,
It's
thank
so
you.
good. My husband has been listening to you forever. He's a huge fan, which I love. I think it's adorable. He really wants to make a difference in the way that he can within the space of women, and
Yeah,
patriarchy and all of that. So
yeah,
it's so important to him, and it's obviously so important to me as well. So
yeah.
I love that he is so supportive in that.
That's so great.
And you're creating such a beautiful support system. So
Thank you.
thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. And
Yes.
then can I just invite any mixed faith couples to
Yes.
join my January group? We're going to just really talk about the hard stuff. I'll do some coaching. They'll get support with other couples who are doing that, kind of in that same situation. And you can register for that at drjuliehanks.com.
Awesome.
Amazing. And that's going to help so many people.
It's going to be
You're
huge.
amazing. Thank you
Yeah.
so
Thank
much for being here.
Thank you,
Thank
Ashley
you,
and
thank
Emily.
you. Thanks for listening to That's Church. We hope you found today's conversation with Dr. Julie Hanks both enlightening and encouraging. From understanding the complexities of faith transitions and mixed faith marriages to reclaiming personal authority and spiritual journeys, Dr. Hanks' insights remind us that we can embrace change and growth with empathy, curiosity, and mutual respect. As we reflect on what we've discussed, remember to check out her January Mixed Faith Couples Group, where couples can gain real-world tools and connection to navigate their differences and deepen their bonds. For more resources and guidance, visit Dr. Hanks' website at drjuliehanks.com and follow her on social media at Dr. Julie Hanks. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review That's Church. Your support helps us continue exploring meaningful conversations that bring us closer together. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, take care and keep seeking your own path to connection and understanding.